Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies and citizens, this joy to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies and citizens, this joy to the world. I bring a message of the truth amidst a world full of lies. I graduated from learning lies to seeking truth. Indoctrinated to be too blind to see the proof. I once was lost, but now I'm found, so I shine light. And everywhere I go is darkness, so I shine bright.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies and citizens, it's joy to the world. Welcome to episode 5 of Uncommon Ground. We appreciate everybody joining us. This is Where is the Curve? And I'm joined here by Mr. Sean, the one and only firmamentalist. How are you tonight, Sean?
I'm great, West Blaze. I'm excited for tonight's episode where we get to test the scriptures and some science, some observation about more description about how the Father created where we live. And is it a ball in space? Is it an enclosed firmament-covered circle of Earth? We're going to look at it tonight.
And where is that curvature? We're going to try to find that elusive Earth curve. It's going to be a good time, man. Who's all in the chat? Can you see it?
Yeah, it looks like we've got Jeremiah 15:16 is back. Tom Budas, Brad Moody, Scott Levelrealm, Mama Lou Bear, James Sims, Mishai Kim is back. Anthony Aguanaga. I think I said that right. Anthony, I'm sorry if I messed up that last name. But we got quite a few people waiting in the chat, and I think they're just as excited as we are.
Good to see everybody. Thank y'all for joining us for sure. Hope you have a good time here with us tonight. We are excited to present what we got, but we also have a giveaway that we want to remind everybody about. If you're not seeing last episode and you're just joining us tonight for the first time, we want to let everybody know that we have what's called a Patreon. And if you sign up with that Patreon, you should be able to find the link in the description. Set up with that Patreon, help support what we're doing here. We have a big project coming up that we want your help with. And we have a giveaway that we want to show some love back to the people with. So Sean's got on screen here a watch, and it is based off of the astronomical clock in Prague in the Czech Republic. A famous clock there, which displays a mechanism that's called an antikythera. And we went over that in episode 2 of the geocentricity, no sphericity, where we showed what an antikythera was and how it was based on a geocentric cosmology. Yep. So we'd love for you guys to be able to rock one of those on your wrists. You'd also be able to get a t-shirt. We got one of those for you.
That's right.
And some stickers.
I love that blue. You know, in Oklahoma, they call that watch the antikythera.
Antikythera. That's what's going on, brother.
I used to live in Oklahoma, guys, so I got family there. I'm Josh, and I'm my own people. Yeah, but it's I think it's pretty cool. Not only do we have this set up to where we're actually doing this giveaway to say thank you to our patrons, but our patronage is actually going towards our firmament project. So that's something I think a lot of people do. We just want to remind people. You can probably see it right here on my screen. And we're actually trying to build a live model of what the Bible describes the creation as. So we're going to take the hundreds of verses that describe what the Father made, and we're going to try to make a working, somewhat functional model. Like, we can't include every single moving piece, but we're doing our best to include the main teaching things, if you will, to give you some scope and scale and to give you an idea of what possibly it would look like. So then you can then share those videos with other people when you explain to them, hey, this is the uncommon ground that we share.
Yeah. And we just want to be able to flood it, drain it, and give it a kingdom, right?
That's
Remember
right.
that?
That's right.
It's going to have all 7 firmaments. It's going to be able to have water mechanisms in there. Kingdom's going to drop down. Y'all are going to want to see this. Help us out. Sign up for the Patreon, and we will be doing a drawing in the following couple weeks where we will be able to pick who's going to be winning these items that we're giving away. So excited about that, guys.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to say also in our Patreon bonus material is the actual meetings we're having with some of the volunteers who are trying to help us make this model. So you get to hear us talk behind the scenes with them and kind of brainstorm. And we've just started the process, but anyone that's on Patreon will be uploading that material to Patreon because it's too much to include in our weekly episodes. Like, Wes, we have so much we want to talk about this week. There's no way we just can't include all that additional content. It'd be like a 4-hour show.
every episode we struggle to keep the content down less than 2 hours, to make it palpable and make it something palatable for you guys.
Right. So yeah, we can't include all that extra content. It'd just be way too much.
Right. So definitely come check out the exclusive content we got there on that Patreon. Their Patreon with the Antikythera. Glad to have everybody.
So yeah, we appreciate everyone that is supporting us, that's praying for us. We've actually already gotten quite a few encouraging messages on, both our Facebook page and as well as our Patreon page. So you guys are apparently digging what we're doing, and then I'm happy about it.
The feedback has just meant so much. Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody's words have been too kind. We haven't really had a lot of people just casting the shade. Not a lot of people just stopping by to hate or disagree. So it's been wonderful.
Here's what Fortress Fitness Beaverton is telling you, Wes, that you got a glow about you. So there's more love coming your way, brother.
Absolutely. Much appreciated.
And James Apple, I think you're going to enjoy tonight's episode. Guys, make sure you stick to the end, because as James is talking about, we've never seen this curve either. But real quick, we've got an actual interview that I did with the pastor of a Methodist church. And so we're going to show you that, because we actually get into some of these scriptures that pertain to the shape of the earth. And I think you'll enjoy it. So here we go, guys. All right, thank you, Pastor Eric, for meeting me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being willing to talk about this topic. Believe it or not, there's been pastors I've asked to interview that have said no, right? So I don't know. Some people, I guess, don't want their opinions criticized, right? So we're not looking to do that. We just want to ask folks, what their opinions are on certain scriptures that other people disagree on. First question: in Genesis chapter 1, it describes creation, right? The 7 days of creation week. Do you feel like those, like Genesis 1's description of creation, like those days are literal or figurative?
Oh, figurative.
Figurative, okay.
If you try to limit God saying how long a day was, then we're trying to make God, who's infinite, finite.
Okay. So in that passage, it mentions, and I guess this would kind of, like, your first answer would kind of follow up with the second question, which is, it mentions day 4 in Genesis 1, and I think it's verses 14 through 18 about the sun, moon, and stars being created on day 4. Now that would seemingly be contradictory, right, to what we've been taught growing up in our society, that the sun and moon came first and the earth came later, millions of years later. Mm-hmm. And so if the earth was created on in day 1, right? Or I guess it's to say the material for the earth was created on day 1, mm-hmm. Genesis 1:1. It wasn't really filled out yet. Then that would be contradictory to what we've been taught growing up. Would you agree with that, or?
Well, and again, we can't limit how long a day was.
Okay.
Day 4 happened on day 4 according to God's day 4.
Okay.
To have man come up with a day is limiting God again.
All right. Thank you. And so earlier in Genesis 1, in verses 2 through 8, it starts to mention, where it says the Spirit hovered over the waters of the deep in verse 2. And then it starts to go into explaining this thing that the Hebrew calls the rakia, or the firmament, is what it's translated into later in the Latin and in the English. I think some versions, like the ESV and I think the NASB, they'll call it the expanse. And I think they get that from the Greek word, the stereoma. Still speaking about the same idea, it says that the waters that were there were divided by this thing called the firmament, the stereoma, and that some of the waters went up and the other waters that went down, we see later in verses 9 through 13, those receded and became the waters that we would call the oceans and rivers and things like that. So big question, is that firmament a literal structure that divides waters, or is it all figurative language?
Well, and God separated the light and the heavens and the stars and the firmament, the earth. It could have been a solid thing. It could have been a molten volcanic thing, but it was just the separation that occurred at that time.
Okay.
That God made.
So when I did some further research on that word, this firmament idea, this rakia thing, I found out that in verse 8, the firmament is called the heaven. It's like God gives the name heaven, the shomayim in the Hebrew. In the Greek, I think it's the aeronaus, gives this name heaven to this firmament concept. And so then I started thinking, okay, wait a minute though. That means I've seen the word heaven everywhere in the Bible, like all these different books, you know? So I started trying to do some further digging, and I started realizing, okay, so when the Messiah, and when Jesus in Matthew 24, he talks about when he's returning with the angels, and they're going to bring justice to the earth, peace to the earth, right? The second coming idea. In Matthew 24, 29 through 31, he talks about the stars falling to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And this is also parroted in Isaiah 34:4 and Revelation 6, verses 11 through 14. Is that a literal event, or is that a figurative event? When Yeshua comes back, is the stars going to actually fall?
Well, does that mean it's heaven on earth?
Is that, so that would be,
even further?
Is that your idea? Is that it's speaking about like heaven's coming to earth, and that's why it's talking about the stars falling to the ground?
Maybe.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's wild, because I mean, obviously, what we've been taught growing up is the stars are millions of light years away, and that they're some of them are much bigger than even our sun, and that, you know, like, for example, if
obviously at the end times when Jesus comes back, if the stars are going to fall onto the earth, then it's going to happen.
Okay, all right. Now, I think in the two different models that we've been taught, or at least the model that we've been taught in school growing up versus what I've been looking at with this firmament idea. The firmament seems like in Amos 9:6, it says about the firmament in a couple different translations. It calls it an actual dome over the earth, an enclosure over the earth. And some of them, like in the KJV, it calls it a troop that is bounding the waters. And I had to look that up, and apparently a troop was something that encloses something, it encapsulates something, you know? And so I was like, all right, well, I guess I could see why the translator would use that. But so then when I think of this prophecy, this idea that, you know, Jesus is going to come back, and then he's coming with these angels, they're coming down, they're coming from up down to us. And then and the stars are going to fall to the ground. That seems pretty detrimental if I'm in a model that I was taught growing up. Should we take that the descriptions in Revelation 21 of the New Jerusalem being described as 1,500 square miles? It seems to give dimensions. I think we have to translate them into English, you know, but do I take those schematics, those dimensional blueprints, do I take that literal or figurative? Is it literally land coming back with the Messiah, or is it just metaphoric or figurative language?
Well, it will be Jesus coming back.
Jesus literally comes back.
And then the Jerusalem that is, or is to be, will be here with Jesus in whatever form Jesus wants it to be.
Okay. All right, so I appreciate it. Did you have any questions for me?
No, that's good.
No? Okay.
Good things for discussion, always.
For sure, yeah. This is what we've been finding a lot of believers are talking about. And, you know, with social media these days, you can talk to believers all over the world, you know what I mean? And you can get into all kinds of conversations that you may not be able to at a Bible study, because that's a little bit more controlled and a little bit more directed by the leader of the Bible study, you know? So there's a whole bunch of groups that, you know, can be created on different social medias where people can just freely and randomly talk about all these topics and ask what seems at first might be a silly question, but then people start talking about it for days and days, you know? So I think any and all discourse.
Bible studies on Tuesday morning.
Oh, really? Yeah. You guys do those?
We go over the scriptures for the coming week, and we all talk about what it means for us today and what we think it means, what it could mean. And everyone is able to offer their opinions. And
that's great.
And free thought, and talk out loud and think out loud. And,
that's great.
What does this mean? What doesn't it mean? What could it mean? Yeah,
that's great, sir. I'm happy to hear that, because I've, you know, my personal experience growing up, my father stopped pastoring the church that he pastored when I was 11. He started doing this missions work and doing other things with the foundation. So then I would go to other churches, and I didn't have a lot of those experiences where you could have free, open dialogue, question asking, or discourse in some of the Bible studies or some of the youth groups or young adult groups, you know. So that's encouraging to hear. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Yeah, we believe in asking questions and having honest thought, and, you know, we don't force people to believe things. We give them scripture, reason, tradition, and experience, and let them put all those together to come to an understanding of faith in Jesus Christ.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it.
Take a journey with me. Wake up, my friends, there's some things that you have to know. Take a journey with me. Take a journey with me. The world's a stage and there. Take a journey with me. Deep inside the rabbit hole. Wake up, my friends, there's some things that you have to know. Everything you ever thought you knew, it has to go. The world's a stage and they're putting on the magic show.
That was a good one, brother. Shout out Pastor Eric. Seems like a really good-hearted dude. I'm glad that he got to hang out with you there for a minute.
Super nice guy. In fact, it was such a spontaneous moment too. And just went to his church to see if they were available, and he was. He was like, "Yeah, we can do it right now if you like." So within 2 or 3 minutes, we're sitting down recording, and so he was open and as honest as he could be about his familiarity with the topic. So I want to give a big shout out, thank you to that pastor if you're watching this. So I did tell him the name of the show, so hopefully he's watching this. And since this is like the 5th episode, hopefully he already has an idea of where we stand on these scriptures, and we've provided 4 dozen scriptures already on these shows to explain this biblical creation model. So yeah, we, like I said to him, and we've said to other people in interviews, like we don't want any of these conversations to cause contention. In fact, we've seen a lot of this, Wes. I'm sure you've seen a lot of this too, where you come to an understanding of something and other fellow believers have not yet arrived at that understanding. They just never even thought about the topic, So it requires our patience and love to gently lead them into that topic, as opposed to just saying, "Oh, you're stupid because you don't know," right? So we just want to treat everybody with love and gentleness. And remember, we all at different learning curves. We all come. I mean, I was a believer and an ardent student of Scripture and follower of Yeshua for over let me do the math real quick. 17 and a half years before I came to the understanding of biblical cosmology. Had I run into somebody in those 17 and a half years that told me, "Oh, you're stupid, because you don't understand the scriptures," what I mean? That would have probably pushed me away from that topic, as opposed to gently letting me get to a familiar place and going over the scriptures with me in love. So that's what we hope to accomplish in some of these interviews.
Very well said, Sean. Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Got to exude those fruits of the Spirit.
That is our goal. That is our goal. In fact, it's funny because we're talking about this episode is, where's the curve, right? We're looking for the curve. And there's some people that have talked about this in the past. I think coming to this conversation, Wes, tell me your experience with this, but have you run into people that have been trying to tell you that, they've known it's been that the earth is spherical. They've known that for over 2,000 years.
Oh yeah, all the time, right? Eratosthenes, his experiments with the sticks and shadows, that was their alleged proof that at least the Greeks had known that the earth was spherical for thousands of years. But we can see, man, there's a great interview we got to show sometime with Neil deGrasse, showing that he admits, world-renowned astrophysicist admits that experiment would work the same way if the earth were flat and the sun were small and local, close and local. Yeah. But yes, sir, this is one of those big topics that kind of just encompasses the entire nature of the conversation, in the sense that this is what people go to immediately, whether there's curvature or not. And that was one of the first topics of study for me. And it was that and the firmament that really, we see too far, and there has to be an enclosure according to God's word and science. Those two big things were like the major catalysts that made me realize, wow, we've absolutely been lied to, and that the truth has been here in this book the entire time in God's word. And that was, a key component that helped me see the validity behind the scriptures.
That's right. Yeah. It's funny. We're actually going to go over a bunch of scriptures right now, and some history as well as admissions from NASA, as well, a whole bunch of things, unique information that hopefully the viewers never seen before, and stuff you can pass on, share with friends and family. But it seems so obvious, like our backgrounds behind us, right? High altitude weather balloons, you get in an airplane, you can see much further than the math should allow if you lived on a spherical creation model. And we know that water always finds a level, right? That's literally how they make the tool level, the architectural tool, right? Yeah. A level is using water in a bubble for you to know what's 180 degree flat or not. So I just think it's fascinating. If there's 70% of the earth that they say we live on a spherical earth, and they say 70% of stuff is water, how in the world can we always watch water find flatness and still cover 70% of a ball? I don't understand it. I don't get, but we got a unique interview with someone from NASA to try to explain it to us.
Do you want to explain that?
Nope.
So that they're not available for further comment. That was all they really had to say. So.
They said, plead the fifth. Plead the fifth.
FIF.
They sure did. They did. So yeah, and we'll hear in a video that we'll play here in a little while later that they say something so true. And if you just can memorize it like this, they say that any vast liquid, any vast standing body of water, always the surface of which is always perfectly flat. So that being said, I look to hope to get into some of this stuff and show some of what we got. Let's get to it.
For sure. We got Thomas Paine. You wanna read what he said
I
200
can't.
years ago? You can't
Yes,
see it?
sir.
Okay, I'll put it
No,
close.
I can see it.
Oh, you can see it? Okay.
Yeah. Though it is not a direct article of the Christian system, that this world we inhabit is the whole of the habitable creation, yet it is so worked up therewith from what is called the Mosaic account of the creation, the story of Eve and the apple, and the counterpart of that story, the death of the Son of God, that to believe otherwise, that is to believe that God created a plurality of worlds, at least as numerous as what we call stars, renders the Christian system of faith at once little and ridiculous, and scatters it in the mind of like feathers in the air. The two beliefs cannot be held together in the same mind, and he who thinks that he believes both has thought but little of either. So he's contrasting the two, stories of creation that we hear, right? The Big Bang heliocentric globe model amongst infinite amount of planets on the road to nowhere, floating through a vacuum darkness of a void, and then the Christian cosmology, the biblical creation model account. And he says that the two beliefs cannot be held together in the same mind. He who thinks that he believes both has thought little of either.
And it's funny because I've actually met believers. It's called the evolutionary. What's it called? Just went blank. Evolutionary theism, is that what it's called?
Sure.
Theistic evolution, basically. And they try to fit an evolutionary construct of millions of years inside of Genesis 1. And most of the time they have to use the gap theory idea, Genesis 1, 2, and the lots of what's called eisegesis, lots of forcing an opinion that's not actually stated into the text. Lots of assumption applied to it that the text doesn't actually say. And that I agree with Thomas Paine, the dude from 220 something years ago, trying to say that you can't, these are utterly contradictory. You can't hold these two beliefs at the same time.
That's right.
So yeah, I totally agree with it. Yeah, I think also I just want to, there was somebody from one of our viewers, brother, she actually sent us a newspaper article that she found, I guess, from microfilm. Because I actually had to crop it for presentation sake, but the original image she sent me, it looked like taking a picture of an old newspaper from microfilm. Cool. But this actually is from the Cook County Herald in Minnesota. This is from April 21st, Saturday, April 21st of 1900, the year 1900. So the turn of the 20th century. And actually, I tried to zoom in a little bit on what this says, and I'm going to read it. And just in case the viewer can't read, it's kind of small, and this is as big as I could get it, so I apologize. But it says that the top of this little sub-article says, Earth is round. And this is in the 1900s, but it's not what you think. This is just getting your attention with that subtitle. This is actually, it says it's painful to read that Sir John Gorst, the head of the British Educational Department, is in serious trouble and has been threatened by Mr. Ebenezer Breach and other taxpayers of the city of Portsmouth in the Kingdom of England with prosecution under the Impostors Act. It seems that the School of Portsmouth has been teaching the damnable and heretical doctrine that the earth is a sphere. Sir John's attention has been called to this dissemination of seditious and treasonable doctrine, but he has refused to correct the abuse. Man, these are strong words.
They are. It's harsh language. It's like some pretty strong condemnation.
That's right. So is Ebenezer and his friends know, of course, that the earth is as flat as a pancake. So let me finish this and I'll make some quick comments here. It says they have been patient with Sir John and day after day have allowed the false teaching regarding the shape of the earth to go on, but can stand it no longer. They say to see their children corrupted with this most heretical doctrine, as the complainants call it in this protest. And it goes on with a lot more to say. But I mean, this is crazy. This is from the year 1900. This is in the British and the UK. And they're basically saying that teaching that the earth is a sphere is a heretical, meaning that it goes against scripture, it's damnable, and it's corrupting the minds of children. Wes, would you agree with those things?
Oh, I don't think it's my place to judge whether something is damnable in that regard. I don't think if you're out there and teaching kindergartners and part of your curriculum is that the earth is a sphere in space, I don't think that you're doomed to hell. No, but I can say that there are some of the ways that they approach it. To me, it's just wild that we don't get told this, that in the past 120 years, there were literal, professors feuding with each other. There was contention, that so much so that they were like getting tired and running out of patience with the one guy that's out here teaching that the earth is a ball, and that they were ready to try to get him fired and stuff because it was that important to them.
And it was that well known for that long that, hey, we can disprove this. This isn't factual. It's not in actual information. And it even fell into this concept of their imposters act, which I don't know if that covered school teachers teaching, information that they said that, was not correct. But at some point you have to draw the line. Like, this isn't philosophy. This isn't a situation where you can just sit around and think thought experiments about different ideas and see where they lead. Like, this is something that you can test and prove. I mean, we've already spent 4 or 5 episodes showing people ways to test and prove it. We're going to do it again this episode. And these particular gentlemen 120 something years ago are sitting there looking at this guy going, he knows better. He knows that this is as flat as a pancake, as it says, but he's still teaching this thing. Now, I agree with you. I don't think it's damnable. But I do know that people in the modern age, I did a show about this on my channel, and statistically, the teaching of evolutionary heliocentricity can be directly related to people losing their faith or having their faith diminished to the tune of 14 million souls per year just in the United States.
That's right.
So,
mind-blowing number.
While teaching that the earth is a sphere and all the circumstantial, falsely so-called science knowledge that goes with it may not directly be damnable, its inevitable conclusion, which leads the soul away from the creator, leads to the potential damnation of that person, right? If they reject the creator. So this, I mean, it does have serious consequences. And Wes, I run into this all the time. People will say to me, this is a distraction. Why does it matter? Why aren't you preaching the cross? I'm like, bro, the person who went to the cross, he knew this information. Do you know this information? It's not, the same thing like when you came in to learn about who Jesus was, what type of behavior he had. He followed his father's Torah, why he kept the Sabbath, why he would talk about the eschatology being fulfilled when he returns at his second coming, and what's going to happen with the creation model, how people are going to follow that same behavior of the Father and the Son and come into covenant. All that storyline that you learned about Yeshua and why him being the Savior over you matters. This is other parts of that information. You know what I mean? This is what Yeshua understood. So how is it possibly unimportant to know? And to me, it seems like a unique little caveat that the enemy has stepped in and said, all right, well, they can believe in Jesus all they want, but I'm going to get them to question the Father. You know what I'm saying? If I can get them to question what he said in the first chapter about what he made, where they are, how significant they are, how much the Father, the Creator, loves them, and what their purpose is and what their future is, I can get them to question all that, then it's going to be much more difficult for them to believe in Jesus, and easier for them to fall for a new age Jesus, which is just more like an ascended master. We see that been popping up a lot.
Yeah.
So
sure have.
Yeah.
Good commentary, brother. What else we got?
So we got a very unique, I don't know if you made this or if you collected this, but you supplied this to me, and there's 36 different verses that talk about the earth has a face. Why is this important, brother?
Well, I'll say I compiled this here with somebody else that put together some of the verses there, and I found this image and the definition down there of what a face is. So this is important because, I mean, by 2 or 3 witnesses, everything is established, most people would say. And so we have 36 of them here, all saying that the earth has a face. Now, if you look at the definition here, in solid geometry, a face is a flat, planar surface that forms part of the boundary of a solid object. A 3-dimensional solid bounded exclusively by flat faces is a polyhedron. This one, what we have here has a face like a clock, right? Because we're literally in a sort of clock of sorts, for sure. But yeah, what else would you say here, Sean? Because every 5th grader might be able to tell you here that when you're looking at how many faces an object has on the test, they're going to get it wrong if they put anything more than 0 on the how many faces a sphere has.
That's right. I mean, I can almost remember either, I think it was 6th grade, we started doing some basic geometry and going over this verbiage. So like, this isn't, it has a it has a mathematical, geometrical definition that's consistent with its literary definition. That we're going to go over some of these verses that you listed above at the top of this graphic that proves even the translators know what this is, that it's this flat surface. It's not just, it's not a ball. It's not the exterior of a ball, right? So this is, here's just one of them real quick. Psalm 104, 29 through 31. It says, you hide your face. They are terrified. You take away their breath. They perish and return to their dust. You send forth your spirit. They are created, and you renew the face of the ground. May the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in his works.
Other versions or translations would say face of the earth there. Same thing. Ground and earth.
That's right. And so that's just one of these verses up here. And some of the translations will say surface. A lot of people don't realize the etymology of the word surface, which is the surface, the uttermost front, the forefront facing part of what you can see. Genesis 6:1 also talks about it. It says, now it came about when mankind began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of the gods saw the daughters of mankind were beautiful. They took wives for themselves whenever they chose. So again, this is giving just like we talked about previous weeks, the firmament encloses the circle of the earth. So therefore, it would be perfectly fitting, wouldn't it, to show that enclosed circle has a face, right, Wes?
Yes, sir. Sure does. Yeah. I can take this next one. It's Deuteronomy 7:6. It says, for you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his personal possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. Yes, sir. Good one.
Yeah. That's
another
100%.
good one saying the same thing.
You want Jeremiah 8? And also goes into a little bit.
Sure. At that time, declares the Lord, they will bring out the bones of the kings of Judah, the bones of its leaders, the bones of the priests, the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem from their graves. They will spread them out to the sun, the moon, and to all the heavenly lights, which they have loved, which they have served, which they have followed, which they have sought, and which they have worshipped. They will not be gathered nor buried. They will be like dung on the face of the ground.
What I love about this one is the context of the verses of 1 and 2. It's about the rebellious. It's about the wicked that were existing during the days of Jeremiah in the kingdom of Judah. And it literally gives you that context to understand that it's talking about the surface of the ground, the face of the ground, because obviously it says that, but we know that they're bringing them up out of the grave and then onto the face of the ground. So you've got a very direct context of application there. I think that's pretty fascinating. And then, of course, this one actually, the translator uses the word surface very blatantly in this because he knows it's the same thing. Face of the ground, surface of the earth, Ezekiel 34:6. My flock strayed through all the mountains, and on every high hill, my flock was scattered over all the surface of the earth. There was no one to search or seek for them. So what are we saying here, brother? Are you saying like there's 36 different verses in scripture that directly say that there is a flat surface to the earth?
They do, just like we observe with our own senses.
That's wild.
That's right. Very consistent message from all the prophets. The same thing.
That's pretty. That would be consistent with the rest of the scriptures we've read in previous weeks, where it talks about an enclosed circle of earth, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
the ends of the heavens with the ends of the earth. Spheres don't have ends.
That's true. That's true. Speaking of, here's a unique idea. Do you want this one, Job 38?
Sure. Job 38, 4-5 says, where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who set its measurements, since you know, or who stretched the line on it? The line is how do you define a line? It's usually a straight and
when you're line. Now a lot of people might be knee-jerk and be like, oh, wait a minute, that's not what that means. That's a plumb line. That's how they used it. That was a reference to a measuring tool. I'm like, yes, a plumb line is a straight line to measure straight surfaces. That's right. That's right. That's right. Very so good. In fact, there's a unique something that's even, we'll probably get into this in a lot more, but there's an actual verse in Jeremiah 31:37. We may get into this further in future episodes, but Wes, this is where the Lord is actually asking, he's very famous for Yahweh's famous for asking these rhetorical questions to his prophets, right? Because he's trying to show the people, look, you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know as much as me. I literally created this place. I know everything I'm talking about. So in Jeremiah 31:37, Yahweh says, this is what Yahweh says. If the heavens above could be measured, and if the foundations of the earth could be searched out below, then I will also reject all the descendants of Israel for everything that they've done, declares the Lord. So I think that's interesting to me because, I didn't really prepare a slide or a graphic for that verse, but he's just basically saying, you can't measure this place. If the heavens above, if the firmament above you, guys, he's not talking about a nothingness, vastness, distances between planetary bodies or stars. He's talking about the structure that we've been describing in the past 4 or 5 episodes of the firmament with multiple layers. So he's like, you can't measure those, nor can you measure the depths of the earth. It's crazy. And yet the world wants to tell you they can measure the depths of the earth. They want to tell you there's a radius to the earth of approximately 4,500 miles. I'm being very, very generic, but they want to tell you the circumference of the sphericity of the earth is 25,000 miles. So they're in utter contradiction to their claim to what the creator of where we live, what he says. He says that mankind cannot measure what he created.
That's right. It reminds me of Enoch, 1 Enoch 93:13. And who is there of all men that could know what is the breadth and the length of the earth, and to whom has been shown the measure of all of them? We also got Proverbs 25:3, the heaven for height and the earth for depth, and the heart of kings is unsearchable. I believe I take that to say that he's saying you can't search the height of heaven or the depth of the earth. And then again, Jeremiah 31:37 is what you just read. So good stuff there, definitely. There was one other verse that we also didn't make a slide for. And it's where the Father is saying that he is able to see everything under the heavens.
Is that Isaiah 33?
I believe so. I lost it. That's okay.
Yeah, it's either I want to say it's either like Psalm 105 or Isaiah 33. It's repeated a couple places, but you're right.
The one I was thinking of is Job 28:24, for he looks to the ends of the earth and sees everything, sees under the whole heaven. So that would also imply if you see everything at once under a heaven with one descriptor for where it is directionally, that would have to entail that it's all visible from one direction, one angle viewpoint.
And that vantage point would make perfect sense for Job 38:14 as well.
It is, and we got a good graphic here.
Yeah.
The earth takes shape like clay under a seal. Other versions say the earth is turned like clay under a seal, and its features stand out like a garment, something to that effect. And so you got a seal here, literal stamp with the azimuthal equidistant map. And over here in some wax, you got that stamped out, looking just like it should.
So this is an actual reference to something that couriers and kings and dignitaries would be very familiar with this reference in the days of Job, to know that if they sent a letter from the king to a courier, they would emboss it with the seal into the clay to make sure it was a proof that no one else opened it, right? And possibly change the message from the king, because that's how you could start a war. So this was, taking this reference, which is a business reference, and the Father is using that because everyone knew what this was, and he's trying to actually describe the shape of the earth like that. So I think this is a very powerful verse.
It is, and Job 37:38 is just full of it. He's just like, hey, you weren't there when I was making all this, and here's how it was. I laid foundation, stretched a line upon it, stretched out the heavens like molten looking glass. So many good statements right there.
It really is. And here's the thing. The end of the Bible talks about the Yeshua, the son of the creator, returning to the earth to remove the wicked from the earth, to create peace on the earth. And this is a famous verse here in Revelation 1:7, talking about how he comes with the clouds. Every eye shall see him, even them that pierced him, and all the people of the earth shall mourn because of him. This is Revelation 1:7. And I love this this graphic here, brother, because it shows the difference between if Yeshua returns on what the world tells us is a spherical earth versus what the scriptures tells us, which is a firmament enclosed circle of land, a flat circle of land. Which one geometrically, which one mathematically, which one with your plain observable eyes makes more sense? What the Bible describes on the right, everyone can see him returning, or what the Bible describes on the left? Apparently this Lego man here on the left-hand side at the bottom of the bulb, I guess would be here, that's your Antarctic base, at McMurdo base.
Yeah.
He's not
gonna a cell phone in his hand, and then
that's right.
No.
Yes, he can see Yeshua return with his cell phone and just be, even though they don't get service down there, and be so happy to see him return on his cell phone. Hope he has good Verizon.
I like his shirt color tonight.
Right.
Well.
I just feel like somebody needs to catch him. He is about to fall. So, like, he's looking rough. In fact, you know what? Never mind. I won't do that. So,
okay.
So, I'm trying to stay on focused here.
Right,
but
cool.
basically, that to me, it's like it just makes there's so many passages, and that's why we're going to show these passages to you every week. There's so many passages in the scripture that just give you the most common sense, the most in your face, the most logical, consistent with the definitions of the words, consistent with the context of how these terms are talking about and spoken and explained. It's all there, and there's hundreds and hundreds of scriptures that help us understand what the Father made, and it's just not what we were told growing up as kids. Here's another example.
Yeah, and it's the same verse we went over a minute ago. It's just another picture here showing you somebody made a seal with a metal wax kind of situation, I think.
Yeah, that'd be a really cool ring to actually have.
Yeah, it would.
Instead of the ring itself would be an example to walk around and explain to people. So we also have, just the prophets. Like I said before, Yeshua knew what the Father created. So did all the prophets, because they're explaining the gospel of the kingdom. And the gospel of the kingdom that Jesus and all the prophets talked about, it only can work inside of a biblical creation model. Like it doesn't work if we live on a ball in space.
It's so consistent and deliberate, to where it's to the point where people really have to ignore a bunch of scripture and what the words mean, and they have to jump through hoops, do some tap dances just to try to make it say something different than what it's saying. And so this verse here, Isaiah 40:22, is one we see a lot, isn't it? That and the one in Job where it says he hangs the earth upon nothing. But those two verses are really the ones that people go to most to say, see, earth is a ball, and the Bible says so. So Isaiah 40:22 says he sits above the circle of the earth. Well, and it goes on to say that the heavens are stretched out like a tent around it for us to dwell in, which just, is couldn't be more of a clear picture for this enclosed cosmology. However, people, when they say that and they use this verse as proof positive, as a proof text for a spherical earth, they're trying to force the word circle to mean sphere, and I've never understood that. Have you, Sean?
No.
Does it make much sense to say a circle? It undoubtedly means sphere, and they'll even try to go into explaining how from the father's vantage and his viewpoint, it looks like a circle to him. But if it were a ball, then Isaiah would have known the difference, and so would the translators of the modern English text, because the word was available for them. And Isaiah 22:18 says he will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball, with a contrast here showing that he does know the application of the two words and what they mean.
That's right. Yeah, I talked about the ancient Mayans playing a version of soccer with horrific consequences in one of my Kingdom Cast podcasts. That was 1,500 years ago. They 100% knew what a ball was. Isaiah was about 2,800 or 2,600 years back, and the Greeks who created Greek fire, they knew what a ball was 100%, because they actually would soak the Greek fire, which is basically a mixture of oils that burned, like they were hard to put out. And then they would roll that ball into the enemy camp and try to catch as much things on fire as they could. They 100% knew what a ball was. They were inventing weapons of war with a ball. So for Isaiah, who was actually a statesman, he was actually a well-learned, scholarly person. This is not someone living in a cave. This is a highly educated person in the society of Israel. He 100% knew the difference between these two words. And, even in modern days, think about someone doing track and field. Think about, like, if you signed up to do discus, right? The coach is not going to throw you one of those discus for you to go practice and say, hey, here, take that ball and go throw it. I'll see how far you can throw it. No, he's going to be like, go throw this discus and make sure you torque right. Yeah. Right. And you're not going to go to basketball practice and someone throws you a Frisbee and says, try to throw it in the net. Like people know the difference between these words. And for the reason that people try to say, oh, it's the same thing. And for him to talk about a circle of the earth is just him talking about a ball. This is what we run into on a regular basis. It's called cognitive dissonance. It's people struggle with it.
We didn't make a slide for this. I wish we would have the words there for the circle is chug in Hebrew, sure. Strong's 2329, and it is synonymous with the word compass.
There
which
you
is
go.
also
Yeah.
a flat circle with a piece of glass over it. And then you also got the word for ball in Hebrew, strong 1754, which is dur, and it is defined as a ball, spherical ball.
That's right.
So
That's
two
right.
different words there for sure.
Yeah, actually, we had a nice comment. I want to hit it up real quick. Pepper Moon saying she's really thankful for this show, and in the past, flat Earth was hard to consider. All that explained said every. I guess she's talking about other people that tried to explain it to her. Said everything is a holographic and like the Matrix. This is a much better breakdown here. Appreciate that, Pepper. I mean, our goal is to show you how real it is. I too have seen those types of channels and videos and explanations you're talking about, and it's very Gnostic. It just flows right into Gnosticism, and that is why we started our first episode talking about the firmament, because it gives you a firm grounding, all pun intended, in every which way you want to take that. It gives you a firm grounding of the creation model the scriptures describe. See, what we've run into, or at least Wes, what I've run into in the past 5-6 years of hearing this topic, and when I became introduced to this topic, the first thing I heard was people disproving that we lived on a ball in space. And that was cool, right? That was mind-blowing. It was shattering, altering, right?
Yeah.
But they don't know where to go from there. They don't know the rest of the creation model descriptions. They stop there. Then they have to come up with all these other ideas to, okay, well, what is holding up the sun and the moon? What is going on? You know, is it some infinite plane, or is it there's some sort of, I've even heard some people say there is a firmament, but it's not enclosing around us like a dome, like the scriptures describe. It's just another infinite plane above us that somehow the sun, moon, and stars are attached to. They don't have the answers. This is the problem, because they've taken a piece of what the creator described and they realize that's true, but they don't have his word because they weren't believers. So then they didn't know where to go to get the rest of the details. Wes and I decided this was a huge need in this community. So we want to give everyone the rest of the details, because it's a beautifully succinct story that makes perfect sense with everything in the book, as well as everything we can observe, test, and just demonstrate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll stop preaching. We'll get going.
No, you're fine, brother. Well said. Well said. Thank you, Ms. Pepper Moon. That was a beautiful comment. We appreciate that. That means so much.
For sure.
Can you believe, Sean, that, you know, we get people asking, show me one time in the Bible, where does the scripture say flat earth?
That's right.
Where is it at? Well, there was a Bible, and it was called the Matthew's Bible, and it was the 1537 edition. Is apparently the last time this was printed. But we have a verse in 2 Samuel, and it's 2 Samuel 11:11 of all verses. And so with that archaic Old English spelling, it says, what is it? Joab and the servants of my
Lord, the Joab and the servants of something
lie in tents upon the flat earth.
That's right.
FLATTERTHE. Very interesting spelling, but that's how they did it. And that is what it says, because the earth is not a ball.
That's right. That's right. Which would be consistent with the other 36 verses we read that talk about things being put on the face of the ground, on the surface of the ground. Yeah. So
where is it in Revelation where it says they came from the broad plain of the earth?
Yeah, you know, I almost thought about including that one in this episode, but I figured we'd wait till we do more of a Kingdom Come episode, because that's so, like, people are going to ask about the millennial reign and Satan being let back out. So
sure, because even as flat as it is now, what that is referring to is when they come down and level out the ground.
Right. It gets even flatter in the future, and so everyone can see the New Jerusalem from anywhere on the circle of the earth. And you know, so yes, in Revelation 20. Verses 7 through 10, it mentions Satan deceiving people at the end of the millennial reign and trying to bring an army against the New Jerusalem. And it says he brings them across the broad plain of the earth to where the New Jerusalem is. So, yeah. And what's interesting is you actually can take the geography of what is told to us in Scripture, where the New Jerusalem is going to sit down, and look at it, at its exterior around that geography, and they're all mountains. So in the future, those will be flattened out, as Isaiah chapter 40, verse 3 and 4 explains, and a whole bunch of other places, Nahum 1:7, where all of those mountains will be crumbled into their valleys. The valleys will be raised up, and it'll be a broad plain, a broad flat plain of the earth. So
that'll be a sight to behold. They'll melt like wax. The mountains will, it says.
Yes.
Can you believe it?
Yeah,
from
because
the extreme heat, I'd imagine.
Yeah, yes, and I always also wondered about, is the massive earthquake, you know, how that shifts everything, and it'll just fall.
It just looks like they're just collapsing on themselves, melting over each other.
And I also wondered if the shout of the archangel with when Yeshua returns, if that has something, because the resonance, the frequency and all that, I wonder if all that has something to do with it as well. So, but yeah, I'm just speculating there.
I got to tell you, that's an episode I'm looking forward to more than so many others. It's the Kingdom Come. We had a question from Pastor Eric, or a question from you too, Pastor Eric, that I thought about cutting out to save for that episode, but went ahead and left it in there. But there's quite a few interviews that we've cut out pieces of because they're going to go so much greater with future episodes, and that Kingdom Come is going to be one of them, and that's going to be a great one. Look forward to that, guys.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. It's going to be fun. Well, Wes, if you like, we can look at some actual proofs, right? Some actual scientific observations to show that there is no curvature.
Please,
right?
Let's do so.
I mean, it's what they've been trying to tell us for a long time, but it's what we've been trying to tell people for a long time, but the world is trying to tell us that no, there's, you live on a ball and there's an actual formula for it, but yet stuff like this, this defies the actual formula. So this is, you want to set this up and explain this a little bit?
Yeah, real quick. So that formula that you only are made aware of if you really dig for it, because we're not told about it in grade school. The formula for the curvature as it is supposed to exist is allegedly 8 inches per mile squared. So from point A where you are to point B where you're looking at, from that 2 points between those, there should be a hump of curvature. Right? If you're wherever you're standing from your perspective, you're basically at the top of your ball if the earth were a ball. But then so from that point to another point, you got this curve if it existed. And so to be able to find that 8 inches per mile squared, I went over another episode real quick. 8 inches is 0.666 of a foot. And then you got in 10 miles, there should exist 66.6 feet of curvature. In 100 miles, 6,669 feet of curvature. And that 666 is just all over it. Suspiciously, right?
That sounds weird.
Yeah. This world record photograph here, 275 miles away. And within that distance, if you look down at the bottom, if you could go back one time.
Sure.
If you look down at the bottom here, we have some math from a curvature calculator. And this is something that's available online. And it is to the specifications of the model that we're given from mainstream science. It's not, flat earthers or biblical cosmologists out here making this up to try to fit their own narrative. This is based on the information we're given. A curvature calculator determines that within 275 miles away from the altitude, it even includes the viewer height in feet, 9,251 feet up in that mountain range that he was at. He took the picture from the Peak de Fenestralis in the foreground to Peak Gaspard in the rear, 275 miles. The Alps should be nearly 9. Oh, I lost it.
My bad.
You're good. Alps should be nearly 9.5 miles below the horizon. Another, some of the calculations down at the bottom says what should be hidden, including refraction, the viewer height, and everything. 3.1, at least 3 miles of curve should be obscuring that mountain range that's in the back, the Peak de Fenestralis.
Yeah, that's crazy. 275 miles. So here's just a little bit bigger picture. That's incredible, man. That you should not be able to see that at all. It doesn't matter how high you would be.
No.
I mean, even from an airplane, you shouldn't be able to see that from if we truly lived on a 25,000 mile circumference ball. So,
but this was with I don't know the exact kind of camera. He says a 1200 millimeter 2.8 zoom lens, but we have something else we'll get into here in a minute. I'm not sure what's next, but there's some infrared cameras that have been able to see even further. This was, I think, the world record from Earth. So we got another guy that's going to be taking some footage from an airplane, and that's going to be amazing.
Actually, that's probably a good time to show that.
Cool.
So let me just pull this up real quick.
Yeah, we got a guy named Jay Tolan. If some of you've heard of him before, he's been kind of noteworthy. Some people have noted his work because he's invested into his equipment. He has some amazing infrared lenses on some really high-powered cameras with some high-tech digital zoom that he's able to cut right through the atmosphere. There's something interesting that happens, Sean, when you put that infrared filter over a camera. The haze from the atmosphere just disappears. You can cut right through it with the camera. So let's check it out.
Hello folks, welcome to part 2 of the Great Lakes in infrared. In part 1 we saw Toronto and Lake Ontario, an amazing contrast. I'm using an infrared camera, 950 nanometer infrared filter on the front. Just incredible performance. I can see through the haze in the atmosphere. Now in part two, we're basically flying where I've highlighted the blue segment. We'll be climbing from 10,000 feet up to 33,500 feet. And you're gonna see some serious long distance imagery. Have a look at these amazing video clips. Let's first watch Toronto again because it's so mesmerizing. Just look at that contrast. Look at the clouds how they rotate. You can tell which ones are in the distance. My camera has 30x zoom. It's a Sony AX53. Incredible camera, and it has the balanced optical system. So it's great for taking on an airplane because the airplane does shake a little bit. It holds, pretty steady at high zoom. Now look at that edge in the distance. You see it? I'll point to it right there. Is that Hudson Bay? Well, we'll find out. I'm looking through the other window and look at that. Wow. We can see the Georgian Bay and Lake Huron. It's just incredible contrast. Now I'm zooming out. I'm zooming in rather. Look at that. Ooh, I can see across the lakes. That's amazing. Whoa, look at that. You see that darkness there? I did an analysis here by looking at the distances of 135 and 210, building up a scale and then extrapolating out. And it looks like that correlates with the Hudson Bay. Pretty interesting, but we'll see more analysis later. Panning around, and notice Hudson Bay, that black streak kind of ends where that dotted line is right over Griffith Island. So it corresponds horizontally with Hudson Bay as well as this map shows. We're looking at that tip of Hudson Bay right there. Dun, 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 dun. Look at that. I'm just blown away by this stuff, folks. Wow, look at that. Seeing clearly across the lake. Now that's Duck Island or something. There we go, Great Duck Island. And way in the distance, that's Hudson Bay, over 1,000 miles away. Here's a map showing the direction that we're looking. Now, here's the analysis, folks, in case you don't believe it, because it is hard to believe. So I know where Duck Island is, or Great Duck Island, at about 200 miles, and then across over there, 250 miles. I take those two distances and just use simple trigonometry and find the angle on a flat plane, 1.4 degrees and 1.8. That gives me a difference of 0.4 degrees. And then I build a scale going up. And then I use trigonometry again based on the angles of 0.2 and 0.6 to now calculate the distance. And what do you know? That darkness out there corresponds to the distance that Hudson Bay should be at, over 1,000 miles. Simply incredible, folks. Just incredible. I mean, I don't know what to say. This is incredible stuff. Yeah, look at that now. There's that darkness there. And see, now the darkness kind of went away in that direction because we're looking in a different direction. So yeah, even horizontally, that corresponds sort of with the angles that we should be seeing Hudson Bay at. Now I'm zooming on something else here. I want to see if I can see the edge of Lake Superior, and I think that's Lake Superior right there. It's over 200 miles. Yeah, this stuff is amazing, folks. Just amazing.
Blown away. That is some breathtaking stuff, man. And I was skeptical about some of the claims in that video. I got to be honest. I watched it, rewatched it, kind of analyzed it a little bit. But you know that the phrase the horizon rises to eye level. We hear that often when we're looking into these things. Well, it's true that the visible horizon from our perspective does rise to our individual eye level at that perspective. But then when you're looking from the perspective of that camera and he's showing, you see a cloud line, and then your mind kind of tricks yourself to seeing a horizon where you guess the ground and the sky would cut off because you're seeing that cloud line. But then when you're looking at it and he's showing you where Hudson Bay was, it appeared to be above that kind of cloud line that's in the foreground. I was like, hold on, that's above the clouds back there. And then I'm realizing, wow, the perspective really does just raise, like the ground just kind of goes up and the horizon is still going up back there. And that's the opposite of what we should be able to see on a ball that would be curving down away from you at all sides and every angle.
That's right. I was just going to say, imagine what he could see if those clouds weren't there. But thankfully, the clouds were so thin, he was seeing past them, over them, which is crazy. Yeah. And, there's another guy that his name is Curious Life. I think he actually changed the name of his channel. It used to be called Curious Life of Flat Earther. I think now it's just called Curious Life. But he actually had a video quite some time ago, 2016, I believe, that he that JT is it Jay Tolan?
Jay Tolan. Yeah.
Jay Tolan used those measurements as we were seeing where he did the trigonometry, and the top point where he was showing Hudson Bay was at 0.2 degrees. Well, that's what this other gentleman had he showed a presentation from MIT where they were expressing that this actual angle, this trigonometric angle, is the furthest point that before anyone can see anything, before it pixelates and becomes unrecognizable. So even when he took his high-powered zoom lens from his camera and zoomed all the way in, he's still only seeing at 0.2 of a degree of an angle to see Hudson Bay 1,000 miles away, which I thought is just, guys, 1,000 miles away. Wes, what do you want to do with all that money that's going to be reimbursed to you that's normally been going to NASA last year? They're going to start giving it to us now since we just disproved everything NASA claims. So
if only.
Right? What are you going to do with that money this year?
Oh, $15 million a day. I'm sure we could do some good work for the Father.
Yeah, that's that uncommon ground stimmy is where we redirect all the funds that have been taken through theft and we give it back to the people.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy, man. What the world will try to tell you, regardless, they expect you not to know the Father's word. So therefore, you're never going to do what this guy did. You're never going to try to actually test the claims. I'm so grateful for people out there like that have went out there and started to test the claims to show that the Father's word is correct. We live on a flat surface of land.
Right. 1,000 miles away view distance there. So more than three times the world record photograph from the ground, which is already an amazing feat. But definitely check out Jay Tolan Media 1 is the name of his channel. He's got a lot of other stuff that's really just mind-blowing, seeing those infrared cameras and how they work. So check his stuff out. Can do.
Actually, there is let me put this up here quick. This isn't the same idea entirely, but I love this this graphic that you showed me where it's talking about just if we're looking over large flat distances, there's a simple way, or even if you don't have a high powered camera or a $1,000 photo zoom lens, you can literally just see straight lines on the surfaces of water. Isn't that right, Wes?
Yeah, absolutely. From the reflections of the sun and the moon, both, they will run a reflection from the furthest point you can see out on the horizon all the way up to your feet at the water. If you stand near the water's edge, that reflection runs all the way over. However, if it were a curved surface and this person has, I don't know if that's foil or what kind of reflective surface they have, they put it on like a poster board maybe, and then they curved it up. they put some slack in it, and once you make it a curved surface, that same light reflection no longer reaches all the way across like it would have if it were flat.
Yeah, this is just something
spot.
simple that anybody could do.
Mm-hmm.
With any light source that you have. You could just show people just with a piece of paper, that anyone can do this at home. A small experiment you can do with your kids if you like, right? You just get a piece of paper and you bend it and then put a light on it, right? And you'll see that it stops right there. Yeah. So you can do it with your bills that come in every month. Interactive with your kids, teach them to pay your bills and about the shape of creation. It's wonderful.
There you go. Ultimate responsibility.
Multitasking. That's right. Just killing the parental game. Teaching them the truth while making them responsible. So basically, you put together a wonderful clip that I wanted to show everybody, and I just thank you for doing this, brother.
I appreciate it.
This is NASA themselves saying some pretty unexpected things.
It is, and anybody can go and find these. There's a NASA technical reports server that they have on ntrs.nasa.gov, and these are available. I can try to put the links in the description for you guys, but check this out. This is me going over some of the declassified and documents that never were classified available to the public. Check out what they got to say.
Oh. Something's going on. Something's going on. I'm losing control here. Sorry, man. My mouse just shut down. What? And I couldn't move my mouse.
They don't want this one to come out.
Let's try this again.
Pull it up.
Let's try this again.
There we go. I can see it now.
Oh my goodness.
Go ahead.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
The NASA Technical Reports server contains a number of scientific and technical information forms with the goal to advance understanding of Earth. One of these archives, the NASA reference publication number 1207 from 1988, makes some interesting remarks. This report documents the derivation and definition of a linear aircraft model for a rigid aircraft of constant mass flying over a flat, non-rotating Earth. While the following introduction states that the report details the development of the same aircraft model over a flat, non-rotating Earth as well. The document repeats this on page 35 and again in closing on section 16 of page 102. These peculiar statements would be easy to dismiss if they were the only ones, but NASA Technical Paper 2835 says it again in the user's manual for a program used to derive linear aircraft models, adding that the equations are used with stationary atmosphere and flat, non-rotating Earth assumptions. Once more, in technical paper number 2768 from 87, the Fortran program overview states that its nonlinear equations represent flying in a stationary atmosphere over a flat, non-rotating Earth. Another file on the NASA NTRS server from 2007 titled General Equations of Motion for a Damaged Asymmetric Aircraft follows suit on page 2. In this paper, the rigid body equations of motion over a flat, non-rotating Earth are developed. The 1978 NASA Contractor Report 3073, Investigation of Aircraft Landing in Variable Wind Fields, begins Chapter 2 by outlining its equations of motion. The aircraft trajectory model employed in this study was derived based on the following assumptions, with the first and foremost being the Earth is flat and non-rotating. I'm Wes Blaze. Stay tuned for more from Uncommon Ground.
What do y'all think about that, brother? Because let's just what can be said about that? These are paperwork from scientific research that are programs and models designed to be able to assist people in training for flying in the military, which automatically assumes lives are on the line because you're flying machinery you know, and then furthermore, they have multi-million dollar, if not sometimes multi-billion dollar equipment. And it's talking about how to fly, how to land a plane that's been damaged and it's now asymmetrical. A chunk of the wing or chunk of the tail wing is now missing. It's based on the assumption that the Earth is flat and non-rotating and the atmosphere is stationary, which also would mean there's no Coriolis if the atmosphere is stationary. So they just debunk themselves all over the case. And this is something I've noticed with deceivers and with people that are just misled and confused. But I think we know which one these are. They contradict themselves. They'll say things and then they'll say something else that is completely contradictory to that statement. And so NASA, as we know, space program out here showing us all these computer generated images of outer space balls. And then they'll go around and tell you in their training documents, in their scientific research papers, that the Earth is flat and non-rotating with a stationary atmosphere multiple times. And guys, this is just, what did I show? 4 of them there?
Yep.
That was not even the tip of the iceberg. That was an inch of the tip. And it was, there's so much more out there if you dig. And so I look forward to being able to show. We did CIA documents a couple episodes ago. This time it was NASA. There's more coming from the military, the Army, and there's the FAA, the Federal Airline Administration, something to that effect. There's more coming, guys. So check it out.
Yeah, I mean, if we ever do, when we do our episode on seasons and weather, I'll show from a meteorological textbook at the University of Oklahoma. They also admit all of it can be done on a flat, stationary, non-rotating Earth. There's no Coriolis effect in anything. Now they make equations for it, but then he actually admits at the very beginning, everything I'm about to show you also works on a flat, non-rotating Earth. So like it's crazy. Like they will admit it to you, and they just don't expect you to catch it.
No, they don't expect anybody to have the time to go digging through these files and then go and show it to people and not be thought that they were crazy. But we're willing to go through the, subject ourselves to the mockery.
Yeah, actually, we got a quick question, Wes.
Okay.
This is from Yearly Adopter. He says, so if the sun is inside the firmament, it is very close, hence the speed of light must not be what they say it is too. Is that correct? Physics go boom, fall down.
Good stuff. That is a good question. The speed of light must not be what they say it is if the sun is close. I'm not well studied on how they've determined the speed of light. I know it just so happens to match up the coordinates of the pyramids of Giza. But that's about the extent I know of it.
Yeah, and Early Adopter, I'm not sure how many episodes you've already seen of us, but we try to go over in episode 1 how the sun, yes, it's inside the structure of the firmament. It's not underneath the layer that encapsulates us, but according to scriptures, it's going to be above, in the layers above us. So that's why Genesis 1:14 can say that it's in the firmament of the heaven, the sun, moon, and stars, but it's not literally just in our sky where the planes and the birds fly. So there's a difference there. It's actually shining through multiple layers to get to us, which is something we're going to explore further with our firmament model.
Yeah.
So this is why you guys go check us out on Patreon if you want to see all the access to us discussing, dissecting, trying to figure out exactly what scripture describes and how to make a working model of that. So
absolutely. We got future episodes coming on the greater and lesser lights as well. The luminaries, we got to talk about those, Sean, because there's so much to discuss about the moon and how they came up with the distance that they proposed for the sun, how that's changed over time. I got a lot of good information. I can't wait to share on those too. But right now we're talking about where is that curve? What do we got next?
Basically, even from like people understand that we talked about at the beginning of the episode how water's level. Mm-hmm. Everyone understands that. I mean, in fact, it's required in certain manufacturing. Like I said earlier, with surveying, with architecture, with engineering, they use this tool called a level, with a little water inside of a bubble area to show when things are level, right? Mm-hmm. So it's very important. So let's just show you here what even in mainstream TV series, how they talk about this topic as well.
For 10 hours, the molten mix is superheated behind thick walls to allow gas to bubble up and out. Bubbles drive glassmakers nuts. After all, nobody wants to look out a window you can't see through. There is only one way to create plate glass without bubbles, and more importantly, flat on both sides.
If a window isn't flat, it'll distort your vision, like a wrong pair of glasses. But making flat window panes is hard. And it used to be done by blowing giant glass bubbles, cutting them open, and laying them flat before they solidified. But they didn't end up perfectly flat. So since 1959, glass has been made by pouring molten glass on a river of liquid tin.
The surface of any vast, undisturbed liquid is flawlessly flat. Tin ingots are melted down, creating that perfectly flat surface. The glass pours onto the tin and immediately begins to cool.
Tin and glass don't mix. Like oil and water, the lighter glass floats on the denser tin. And the result is a system where the liquid glass and liquid tin start at high temperature at one end of this giant river, and they cool. They're cooled deliberately until at the end, the tin's still liquid, but the glass is solidified.
Compared to glass, tin's melting point is low. By the time it reaches this stage of the assembly, the glass hardens, floating on top of the molten tin like driftwood on water. Still very hot, as in 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit hot. The glass moves down the line in one long continuous sheet. It stretches 1/4 of a mile, and because of its length and temperature, it's surprisingly elastic and strong enough to really beat on.
This glass almost as hard as you want. You won't break that glass. It's extremely strong and it's pristine.
Steve, I think you've actually proved your point there. So from here to there, you need to bring it down about 100 degrees.
100 degrees, and that's why we have such a long cooling conveyor, is to allow it just to cool down naturally.
A robot then cuts this long ribbon of glass into slabs that run about 12 feet across.
These long pieces of glass have been cut, and in a moment they'll be packaged and then shipped to their distributors, where they'll be turned into
glass panes or whatever he said there at the end. Sorry for the awkward cutoff, but yeah, I just really love that quote. The surface of any vast liquid when undisturbed is flawlessly flat, they said, and they depend on that for their job. It's not just something to say. And I thought it would be, it would be less interesting if they were only making sheets, 6 feet, 9 feet, maybe 12 feet long. But they said that they have like a conveyor belt of one continuous sheet that's 1/4 mile long inside their warehouse.
That's what I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, and my brother-in-law is a surveyor, and I asked him several years ago. I was saying, hey, when you're surveying 1 mile at a time to set up for a large factory like that glass plant, where they'll do 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile. Sometimes factories like big car manufacturing plants, like the Ford factory in Michigan, is 1 mile long. So it means a surveyor has to come out before that building slab is poured, and they have to measure off to show a flat surface for the foundation to be laid for that length of measurement, right? So just that, as you saw in that video clip that you presented, just the glass itself is 1/4 mile long, super flat and undisturbed. And then it goes into another part of the factory. So I'm guessing the factory is much bigger than just 1/4 mile. So that means that all of that was surveyed as flat. That has to be flat. There's no curvature in that, what they're doing. So I asked my brother-in-law, so like, hey, if you're surveying for a building of that size and it has to be, it's like 2 miles in total diameter and you're having to survey everything and it's all flat, what if you just took the records and showed, okay, well, this was the land that was surveyed for this property. It was 2 miles in length. It's flat. And then the property next to it's 1 mile. It's flat. And the property next to that. If you got people doing these surveys, just put them together, how many, you get 40, 50 surveys before you have 100 miles worth of incredibly flat land. Just like, we would talk about with the bodies of water on the oceans, right? How they're 70% of least is what they tell you, right? And so how could it possibly be curved if all that we observe, both land and water, is constantly flat? Or where you see land across a flat body of water, like the mountain records you showed earlier from 275 miles away. It just doesn't make sense, Wes. I don't understand. The only thing I can make of it is that we were told when we were children in the crib that we lived on a ball. And they even put a little mogul with hanging little Saturn and Mars and Venus and Earth and little, spinning above our head with a nice little tune. That's the only thing I can think of. What do you think?
Oh, I'm just lost in it all. It's a lot to consider, right? I mean, I've been pondering it for going on 3 years now, and it's still just mind-blowing to think that if they can convince us that we can't even trust what we observe to be true, what we feel and experience and can test, measure, repeat, prove to be true, combined with what the Father's word says, if they can get us to just completely abandon all that, that's the very foundation of the ground we stand on. That's our very place in creation and our spot in the universe, the cosmos. And if they can mold all that to something, into completely a lie, then they can pull over anything on us. And so it's part of the Great Awakening. That's why it's part of why it's such an exciting time to be alive, because of things like this and how many people are waking up to it.
That's true. You know, it's funny, like our bodies are so fine-tuned. We know if our equilibrium is off in some regard. We would know if we're on a spinning at ridiculous speeds, with centripetal forces pulling on us and gravity pulling on us a different way. We would know this. We would feel this kind of thing because we can test this in every other way of our life. When we move, you trip over something, a piece of furniture, or a step, and you start to lose your balance. You know, in it, like super fast. Your body is so fine-tuned. In fact, they make certain instruments to be as sensitive as the human body. You can feel the uttermost subtle vibrations when an earthquake starts to happen, right? Or just when someone's walking from another end of the house and the beams of the floor are suddenly shifting and a little bit of vibration. So it's just amazing to me that they want you to ignore all that and believe a narrative that your body and your natural senses every day of your life would dispel that narrative. You know that you're in a flat, non-rotating, stationary piece of land. And you know that air you breathe has to be enclosed by something. This is something you observe at all times. So it's funny that, in fact, we have a fun little clip of someone losing their balance midair as they're flying through the air, and they know it and try to adjust immediately, but they fail. So
See, so we can tell.
Even people that can't dunk and they try, they know when they're off balance and they're about to bust. So, you know, this is just little tweaks in that split second. He's flying through the air. He realized he was 3 feet short of a dunk, and he was going to land on his back. So he tried to adjust, but you know, and so for them to tell me that I'm on a rock that's flying around a ball of gas they call the sun, and that all that's flying at 1,000,000 miles an hour in our galaxy, in our solar system, everything, all of our instruments and our body and everything built within our body tells me that's not true. Now, that's my personal observation. Thankfully, I have the Creator's observation with his vast word that we've been reviewing for you today that will also show you that that's not true. So I'm just excited because I hope more and more people start really waking up and exercising their faith for what our Creator said. That's kind of my prayer, Wes.
Myself as well. Absolutely. I just hope that the information we're presenting, for those who weren't as familiar as we've been with these topics, that this is growing your faith, that it's strengthening your understanding of God's word, and it's helping his entirety of his messages come alive to you in a way that it never did before, because that's what it did for us when we started to realize these things and are testing it out here in the world. We're finding out that the word is so much more true than we knew. And it's beautiful.
Yeah, it makes the Bible so much easier to read, and to me, it increased my faith like incredibly, because now it gave that much more detail and reality, if you will, to everything I was reading about the return of the Messiah, which is, you know, this wonderful day of redemption and hope that we look forward to, the great resurrection of the saints at the return of the Messiah. So, you know, I just increased my faith, but
I didn't really have much faith until, you know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
To reiterate, I was pretty faithless. I had that mustard seed, asked the questions, I prayed for those answers and those doubts to be relieved. And these are the kind of topics that I was led to, that the Spirit of truth led me into the truth. And he knew exactly what I needed to firm that, you know, to found that firm foundation under me for my faith. And it greatly increased it.
Before we go, we have one last question here. It looks like, yeah. Sergey Navranov, I'm just going to say
that's
Sergey.
Okay. That's okay.
Do you want to read the question?
Sure. He said, I was just thinking, don't laugh at him, Sean. What are you doing?
I'm laughing at me. I'm laughing at my bad English.
I know. I was just thinking about Psalm 19, 2-4. Is it all talking of the firmament? If so, then it should night after night utter knowledge, maybe the stars. I'd have to look back at Psalm 19, 2 through 4.
Yeah, I got it pulled up here. It says,
Cool.
I'm going to start in verse 1, actually. It says, the heavens tell the glory of God, their expanse, which is the firmament, declares the work of their hands. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out into all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has placed a tent for the sun. So that's those verses there. Yes, I would say it's talking about the firmament, 100%. In fact, I think we actually reviewed some of these verses, at least 4 through 7, in our very first episode.
Right.
And so he asked, if
Circles.
so, then it should night after night utter knowledge, maybe the stars. Well, that's the idea of, there is poetic language in the Bible. And so, like, I don't suggest that you could put some sort of listening device up to the sky and hear. Now, I do know that there is some sort of influence the stars have, according to Job. I think it's Job 26, but or Job 38. There is some sort of influence that the stars have in relationship to the earth. But as far as us literally hearing things, I don't think that. There is a unique book that came out 100 years ago, and there's a gentleman who he tries to explain the Mazzaroth, or the constellations, and how they tell the story of the coming of the Son of God and redemption and everything, according to what each constellation meant to the people of ancient times. And supposedly we've lost those ancient meanings, and he dug and researched them up, and it actually tells the story of the gospel, the good news of Yeshua, in the stars. So is that what it's talking about? Possible. It's possible.
It could be. I know there's some interpretation involved with those kind of things, but overall, it would be exciting to look into it, because I have to notice that the ancients depicted a couple constellations, for instance, Orion, in quite a bit of a different position, than what we see and think of in modernity. So, also before we go, Sean, we have a shout out for next week's episode. We needed to play that teaser before the outro.
Let's we're happy to announce that next week we're going to have a musical guest. It's Marlo Eugene.
That's right.
Chalice is dripping malice. My challenges fill a cup up. Pacifist till disaster. His ratchets is getting under. They catch my assassin fist from the rafters. I'm balancing on the canvas. It's scan till a ninja mask. I'm like, what's up, bro? Soon as I came back from the harbor, he took the cherry of his cigar and burnt a hole in my armor. Like you not no Vladdy Divad. Not gonna block the Shihan with these blue Hadouken DVs and these Hatsumaki Reeboks. They be on. Side racks with the sauce. Just trying to sing my song. Like sit back and be calm, but not yet. See everybody around us about the peso. But the kamikaze got us out of town, we tryna lay low. Loop-de-loop and coast, we juking troopers, moving through Sasuma superhuman platoons with the Rugers, and they bulletproof. On 2-on-2 with these dudes in the Mugen, got bazookas, and then blew out their computers, CPU like do-do-do-do-do-do. Yeah, yes, that's all on your face. Kasuji, things are not the same. We've all gone the same. Kasuji.
Man, every time I hear that, I love it. That dude has such delivery, mic presence. He's got a skill and talent with his lyrics, and the words are just well versed. I just can't say enough about the dude. I can't wait to hopefully make a song. We're gonna try to get a new song ready for next episode. Can't promise anything, but we're working on it. You're muted, by the way.
Here we go. I'm a big fan of Marlo's music as well, and I think he's just like you, brother. Father's blessed both you guys with the ability to put together lyrical poetry in a way that just is attention catching, truth revealing, and it sticks in your brain. I mean, that particular song, like to me, that's one you put on when I go hit the bag and I go practice martial arts. It's a great one.
Nice.
That's a gym song, that's for sure.
So I'm looking forward to Marlo's testimony and hearing some more music from him. We're gonna have to pick out some songs for next week. That's gonna be exciting. Y'all check it out. Don't forget about the Patreon. If you would set up with that, we'd love the support, and you're gonna get some freebies, some extra contents, exclusive behind the scenes stuff for doing that as well. You're gonna be able to be entered into the drawing for the items we have to give away. Got some stickers. As we said, the t-shirt, we're looking at a watch with the Antikythera on it. So much good stuff. Next week, Marlo Eugene. Also subscribe here on West Blaze Music that you're watching this on, and West Blaze Music Facebook, Messenger of the Most High. I got a Facebook and YouTube for that. If you're looking for more word-focused ministry, I got a lot of good stuff on there. Check me out there. But in the same fashion of the music, like we were just showing, we're gonna have a musician on next week. I have a song that I'd like to introduce real quick. Unless you got anything else, Sean?
I'm good, brother. I really enjoyed this episode. It was great.
I did really enjoyed it with you as well, brother. Thank you for all your work, and all esteem to the Most High. I want to just say thank him for this song that we're about to play next, because he brought together a unique collaboration that I had acted on when I had the idea for it. And that I reached out to all these artists that I had been listening to for a couple years after I had really come to a firm foundation of understanding the creation model, realizing the truth of it, coming to understand the Bible is true. I had started to make music again. And it had been the longest time that I'd stopped making music. I worked with a couple best friends growing up. One of them went to jail for a long, long time, and the other one ended up passing away. And so it was really discouraging in what music I was making, especially because the music I was making back in the day just never really sat right with me. I felt like I was making it for the world. And so I started turning my attention and my writing, lyrics, and song content all geared towards the Father's truth. Right. And flat earth and the biblical cosmology was one of the first things I wanted to kind of talk about. And so I got just one or two songs like that under my belt. And I reached out to people like Amber Plaster, her husband, Anthony Stover, Sebastian Calico. I reached out to ODD TV, who was a fave that I had been listening to nonstop for almost 2 years there. Flat Earth Man, the conspiracy music guru, Alex Michael. So many good guys. Daryl Marble, he's on this one. They all, one by one, just fell in line to collaborate on this, and some of them very quickly. And it was such a dream come true, because I never pictured myself working with any of these guys. But Sean, I never pictured myself doing this show with you either, brother. And I'm excited about what we got going on here. I'm excited to show this again. This is the Flat Smackin' remix, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank everybody for tuning in.
You won't be able to listen to this just once. This will stick in your head, guys. Get ready.
Much love.
This is the Flat Smackin' remix, the all-star mic pass. Gotta bring the people together, we got the right cast. Amber Plaster, Sebastian, D Marble to keep it snapping. Baghdad, ODD in the deck, to send a packet. Yeah, we even got the Flat Earth Man up in here rapping. We got the truth and we sharing the same passion. The earth is flat and they're lying to hide the true creator. No truth is greater than the truth of the Yahusha say. NASA in Hebrew, it means to deceive you. So please go review the lies that they feed you. Eyes wide open so the forgery is see-through. Time's up, liars, it's over, we don't believe you. Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. Remix. Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. Remix.
Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. Once you go flat, you don't go back. Got a bunch of clothes back at home up in the trash. I'm not even really tripping if I get laughed at. Everybody here's about to get flat tonight. Sent us over the moon like a rhyme from Mother Goose. Blue marble Photoshop, red carpet cartoon. It's spinning like a top. Is the deal you buy? Better take a second, taste that salted word of God. So let me explain. You live on a plane. Go ahead, observe. You won't find a rising curve. So let me expound. Yeah, I know it's round. No glow floating high. Flat more like your pizza pie.
Top of the morning, it's your boy Calico. I'm out here flat smacking, but in fact they don't hear me though. Probably for the same reason Jesus spoke in parables. Sign language don't work when you're blind and your hearing's dull. Man, I used to hit him hard. I hit him with the facts and used to lick my knuckles flat, smack him with the backhand. Now I leave clues. Yep, that's how I does it. Like Michael J. Fox and Mickey D's. I'm dropping nuggets. I'm dropping nuggets. They love it. Man, the searchers was wanted. Man, they seek it, they find it, and then they keep it 100. Every once in a while, man, you find me hang around with my hand cocked back, covered in baby powder. A flat smack. A flat smack. Got 6 about male that have my back. Flat smack. Flat smack. Man, this globe so old, seem to grown some mold. Flat smack. Flat smack. Man, I'm sorry about the lies that you've been told. Flat smack.
Flat smacking activists rapping about the fact that it's a flat plane. Open your brain, we've been playing trapped in this lie since the beginning of time. Father of them all had a mind thinking we were monkeys on a flying water ball, spinning around 1,000 miles an hour as we chase the sun. Why's Polaris in the same spot? Face it, son. Water's flat and that's that. NASA's a waste of funds. Why would they lie? 19 billion a year laser guns. It's more than just the shape of the earth being flat, yo. The whole creation under God is under attack. Facts, bro. Air, food, and water, poison in my daughter. What it amounts to is mass slaughter. Baby with the bathwater. Revelation is happening while I'm rapping. I'm patiently trying to wake up my neighbors and getting slapped in the face. And my family thinks I'm a waste. And the tribulation is greater than any hater could face. Flat smacking a hater. Never stop flat smacking till the ball drops. Never stop flat smacking till the ball drops. I'll never stop flat smacking till the ball drops. That ball, that ball, but where that ball drops.
You like that? That feel good? That feel good?
Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. Once you go flat, you don't go back. Got a bunch of globes back at home up in the trash. I'm not even really tripping if I get laughed at, cause everybody here about to get flat smacked. Yeah, you must have heard of me. I'm the flat earth man. Flat smacking with my songs across the flat land. Listen to my music and try to prove me wrong. I'm killing the globe with each and every song. NASA and scientism, they mad at me because of my songs like Don't Believe in Gravity. My songs are for teaching, they got real information. I'm musically smashing the globe, indoctrination.
Let me introduce myself in case you don't know me. I'm a known globe killer, call me ODD. This world isn't what you thought, nope, not at all. So it's time to stop spinning and get off the ball. They say ignorance is bliss, but I like knowing the truth. If we really live on a sphere, why can't they show us the proof? You've never seen the curvature, just wipe that one from your list. How could you ever witness something if it doesn't exist? Tell me that. Flat smacking them back into reality. The galaxy they teach us is crap and it's a fallacy. Teaching theories is fact and it's a tragedy. When Earth is stationary and flat in actuality. And NASA pictures always look so great. You can tell that they ain't real because they look so fake. Nobody landed on the moon and outer space is a lie. The Earth is flat, I'm gonna say it till the day that I die.
You're just another victim of the system, but lyrically we lynch them. Cause never will we give it, the truth lies hidden. It's stationary still, so take the red pill. And I ain't gotta wait for you to catch up. You think it's raining upside down in Australia? You believe we got astronauts in the sky? I ain't here to save you, you a waste of time.
Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. Eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat.
Tell me why these boats sail flat. Tell me why these planes fly flat. Water's water, always find its way flat. Everything I learned from my control, I give back. It's not up for discussion, debate, we flat smack. Reppin' FBC, we peel off hot facts. Like, where's Mars at? Where's Venus at? And while we ain't seen that, ain't no live CGI for the naked eye. Only screenshots and ink spots when they lie. And they like, oh hell NASA, pseudoscience Photoshop on my past.
It's a spirit level guy repping FE crew. Steady putting in the work to bring the FE truth. Opposition forces working trying to stifle the flow. The earth is flat and stationary, I'm just letting you know. You've been deceived about space, let me make that clear. Now the moon's inside the earth's atmosphere. Yeah, right. The cabal is in fear trying to move the goalposts cause we're nearing the punchline of this globe joke. How we live on a ball with so many flat surfaces and globes aren't meant for educational purposes. The world we've been taught isn't quite what it seems. Let me stop it right here and get back on my routine cause I eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat. I eat, sleep, debunk the globe, repeat.
Thank you,